Good morning everybody. This is my question and answers video that I promised you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for everybody who's left a question. I'm going to try and answer them as best I can. So I've got my laptop on my knees, so if I keep looking down I'm going to have to read the questions, so you'll have to excuse me. So let's get straight into it. First question is, let's have a look. It's a question from June Ingram, and it says, I have been reading a lot on mindfulness, which is supposed to help a lot with anxiety and depression. Have you tried this or meditation? I do know quite a bit about mindfulness. I do practice it myself. I have read a lot about it. It's a wonderful way of centering yourself and being very aware of everything that's going on around you and focusing. Unfortunately, with the problems that I have with my mental health and the medication I'm on, it's very difficult for me to focus my mind onto very specific things sometimes. So mindfulness is certainly something that I'm aware of. It's something that I have practiced and it has brought me benefits, but at the moment, with the way things are, it's a bit tricky for me to practice mindfulness. The second part is, have you tried this or meditation? Yes, I used to meditate every day actually. Quite a number of years ago, I studied Buddhism, and I studied Buddhism for about 2 or 3 years, and I thought that I was going to become a Buddhist. But there are some aspects of Buddhism that I don't believe in, and they were very important aspects, and even though I agree with 90% of Buddhism, the aspects that I don't agree with are very important, so I felt that I couldn't become a Buddhist. And ever since then, my meditation has I've done a lot less. Now I know meditation isn't a Buddhist thing, it's for anybody, but I find it really difficult with the mental health to focus on things, and so meditation, just like mindfulness, is a bit of a problem for me. Next question is from Shannon F27. Have you ever published any of your writings? Would you want to be a professional writer? If not, what is your all-time dream job? Also, very important, what's your middle name? First of all, I've never published any of my writings. I don't know that I'm a good enough writer to ever have anything published, other than if I publish it myself in ebooks, which is something I am planning. I write purely and simply every day because I love to write. I have a character journal which is stuffed full of all different characters that I create and I invent. I've been working on a character this morning actually. His name is the Count Caminetti. He's an old Italian count who lives in Tuscany in the 1200s, and I'm developing a story around him. Would you want to be a professional writer? Yes, I'd love to be a professional writer, but again, I'm not sure that my talents are sufficient. If not, what is your all-time dream job? Well, my all-time dream job is to be a writer, to be published, to have my plays and poems and short stories published. Also very important, what's your middle name? My middle name is David, which is my father's first name. So I hope I've answered those for you, Shannon, and I hope you're well, because that's kind of important. Okay, so I've got a question from Overgrow the UK Allotment Gardening, which is Jamie. I watch Jamie's videos. If you're into allotments and gardening and stuff, you know, look him up because he's got great videos. Jamie's question is, my question is, when and why did you decide to become vegan? About 10 years ago I became a vegetarian, and it didn't last very long. I wasn't a very committed vegetarian because at the time I became a vegetarian because I had people around me who were suggesting I should be because it's good for you, blah blah blah. And I wasn't really committed to it. So I became a vegetarian, and I very quickly drifted away from it and went back to eating meat and dairy and all that crap. So I've always had a certain amount of knowledge of how meat and dairy isn't good for you and how animals are treated quite badly. I've never eaten much meat anyway. Meat has never been something that I've really enjoyed very much. It wasn't until May or June of last year, 2014, that I suddenly just... It was very strange. I suddenly just... Well, my health was improving because I was exercising and I was eating more healthily. And as I said, I hadn't been eating much meat anyway. And I just thought to myself, you know what? I love animals. I call myself an animal lover. I've had dogs and cats and guinea pigs and hamsters and rabbits and fish, and I used to keep praying mantids, and I used to look after praying mantids in aquariums and stuff. And one day I just kind of woke up and thought, you know what? It's really difficult to call yourself an animal lover and somebody who loves animals if you eat them. Because every time you eat a piece of meat, it doesn't just represent the meat that's on your plate, it represents the pain and the suffering and the death of that animal. You know, that piece of meat was part of an animal, and I personally don't feel that I have the right to simply take an animal's life. Because make no mistake about it, a lot of meat eaters like to be delusional, and they like to live in a fantasy world, and they say, oh, I'm not responsible for the death of that animal. Somebody in an abattoir kills that cow, I just eat it. But the point is, if you eat meat, you are responsible for killing that animal, because if you don't eat meat, that animal doesn't die. If you don't eat meat, the supermarket doesn't have to keep replacing the meat on the shelves. Therefore, less animals would be killed. So I just realised that in May of June, and I just made the decision to become vegan. And to be honest, once I'd made that decision, giving up meat was very easy, because I didn't eat much of it anyway. Giving up the dairy was quite difficult, because I used to really, really love cheese. Now I'm kind of disgusted and ashamed to think back to how much cheese I used to... I mean, every day I used to eat cheese. And chocolate was very difficult. Cheese and chocolate... Oh, and actually I say giving up meat was easy. Excuse me. Giving up meat was easy, but giving up pepperoni pizza was very hard. I used to love a Domino's pepperoni pizza. Now that I make my own cheeseless vegan pizzas, as you may have seen on my channel, I can't think why I ever ate pepperoni pizza. All that cheese and grease and fat and suffering. When you eat a pizza, the ingredients of that pizza include suffering and death. So I gave up in June. I didn't become 100% vegan in June, because I was still eating a little bit of chocolate and a little bit of milk, drinking a little bit of milk here and there. But by the end of June, sort of middle of July, I'd given it all up. So May, June 2014, Jamie, was when I gave it up, and I became a vegan because a lot of people are going to disagree with this. I just don't believe that you can claim to love animals if you eat them, because if you eat them, they've got to live horribly and they've got to die. Okay, so I have a question, sweet and starchy vegan, and she's actually put several questions, so I'll rattle through them. How old are you? I'm 38. I'm only 2 years away from being 40. I don't want to be 40. What type of work do you do online? I have several things that I do. I play online poker quite a lot and earn money from that. I deal in stocks and shares on the stock market. I have a very, very strict ethical share dealing policy. I don't buy and sell shares in companies that damage the planet or that are involved in... Sorry if you hear noise, but the fella upstairs being a bit noisy this morning. I don't make profit out of companies that deal in any kind of animal agriculture. I don't deal in oil companies and pollutants and all this stuff. So I play poker, I have stocks and shares, I do a little bit of work here and there on eBay. I've got this YouTube channel, obviously, which I'm trying to grow. I monetize my videos, which I know a lot of people don't like, but I'm trying to raise money to buy better equipment. The camera that I'm using is a flip camera. Picture's okay, sound is terrible. So I monetize my YouTube channel to raise money. So yeah, I'm 38 and I do several things online. Next part of Sweet and Starchy Vegan's question: have you noticed any changes in behaviours / attitudes since becoming a minimalist? Yes. I could make a 2-hour video on all the changes I've noticed. Primarily I've noticed time. I have so much time to do exactly what I want since I became a minimalist. It's incredible how when you stop buying things, I mean, when you go out shopping, for instance, as a minimalist, you don't spend hours walking around the shops going, I wish I could buy that, I wish I could buy that, I wish I could afford that. You don't go into shops and try stuff on and come out and go into another shop. As a minimalist, I've made a video about my minimalist wardrobe uniform. I wear the same thing. As you'll know if you watch my videos, I wear the same thing. So time is incredible. I have so much time to do what I want. I can do all these things on the internet. If I weren't a minimalist, I wouldn't be able to earn the money that I do from being on the internet, because I have to be in front of my computer to buy and sell shares or play poker. Before I was a minimalist, I didn't have the time. I was always racing around, I was always cleaning things, tidying up. I mean, when your flat or your home is full of stuff, you're always having to tidy it up, right? And dust and stuff. Well, I don't have much stuff. So, certainly I've got lots of time. That's the main thing. My attitudes have changed to commercialism. I hardly ever watch television. I don't watch the news. I think that's important. If you want to be, I believe 100%, if you want to be a happier human being, do not watch or listen to news programs. Because they don't broadcast news, they just broadcast stuff that is sensationalist and horrible to get you to watch. They know, putting negative stories. News broadcasters are only interested in broadcasting negativity and horrors, because that's what people will watch. My attitude to life and other people has changed 1,000,000% since I stopped watching and listening to and reading the news. It's amazing, honestly. If you want to change your life and make yourself happier and more positive, stop watching the news. It may sound daft, but don't watch the news or read the news or listen to the news for 1 week of your life and watch how your mood elevates, okay? So that's a massive change in attitude. Don't watch the news. I listen to the radio mostly. I listen to BBC Radio 4 and BBC Radio 4 Extra here in Britain. Well, you can get them online anywhere in the world. BBC Radio 4 and 4 Extra, they focus on plays and dramas, and they have sort of documentary programmes on the radio, and they have comedies, and they have science programmes and history programmes. They're not commercial stations. That's another good thing. Don't listen to commercial radio, because you're being bombarded all the time by buy this, buy this. That helps. Next part. Oh, okay, that's actually her last question. She goes on to say, I know for me, I used to like to go shopping, and now becoming a minimalist, now I can't stand it. Yeah, that's true. So the next person is JLu0717. How old are you? I said that previously, 38. How tall are you? I'm 5'8", which is not the tallest for a man, but you know, Julius Caesar and Napoleon were fairly short, and they were pretty great men. How do you make a living? As I've said previously, my living is made online. I used to be a self-employed painter and decorator, and now I'm making my money online. Making money online is a wonderful way because it gives you so much time and freedom. What are some of your favourite YouTubers, especially for us who are new to the high carb, low fat lifestyle? Favourite high carb, low fat lifestyle YouTubers are, well, my absolute favourite is High Carb Hannah, and then I discovered her through Unconventional Living, who is another wonderful person. Derek from Unconventional Living and High Carb Hannah are actually a couple. They got together through the internet. Who else do I like? I love Holistic Lotus, Lauren Jade. Lucy Fruitbat, I like watching her videos. Who else is there? There's so many, it's kind of hard to... I used to subscribe to Freely and Durian, but I don't anymore because their message is just so vile and negative and confrontational. I used to subscribe to Bananiac, and Happy Healthy Vegan, but as much as I love those guys, they started just kind of copying Durian and Freely a lot and just making endless videos about Durian and Freely said this is our response, and it's kind of like, no, that's boring. Some of my other favourite YouTubers, I love Patrick's channel, 1 Yard Revolution. His channel, if you grow food or want to grow food, go to 1 Yard Revolution. I think his channel is the best channel anywhere on YouTube in terms of growing food. He's got a yard and he's converted it into just endless food production. It's extraordinary. I watch a lot of ASMR videos because I have ASMR. I get the tingles from certain sounds, and I love Whispers Red ASMR. I love Voxonaut. Who else? Oh, also the high carb, low fat YouTubers. I love Delicious Journey and Melina Mandarini. So there are some of my favourites. So JLou0717, I hope I answered your questions. This is an interesting one. This is from Stephen Judge. Hey Steve, how you doing? What did you do with your records? This is a very interesting story, and it ties in with my mental health problems. About 2 years ago, I suddenly, out of the blue, decided that I really desperately wanted a record player and to listen to music on records. I bought a record player, an amplifier, speakers, record shelves, record sleeves, and I started buying very large quantities of records. I was buying several records every day. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be on my laptop. I'd be buying records on eBay, Amazon, all over the place. I joined the sort of Facebook record groups, and I was doing this for about 12 months to 18 months. And unfortunately, there came a point where I was sitting in my room with all these records around me, and I suddenly realised that I didn't actually want them, because I wasn't listening to them. I was buying records. You know, the postman was coming down the path to my front home with great big piles of record boxes. I was buying records that I didn't want to even listen to, and I would take them out of the box, put them in a sleeve, put them on my shelf, and they weren't being listened to. I didn't realise at the time that this was a consequence of my mental health problem, my dissociative disorder, because my dissociative disorder comes with compulsive behaviour. I now realise, because I've been spoken to the doctors at mental health hospital, that my record buying was not because I really wanted the records. It was because I had the compulsive desire to buy them and keep them and collect them, and I had very set, disciplined, routine. The record would come, I'd clean it, I'd let it dry, I'd put it in the sleeve, I'd put it in the shelf, I wouldn't even listen to it. And then I'd sit there in front of my record shelves admiring them, and I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of records, and more were coming every day. And I'm a minimalist, as you know, so for a minimalist to be buying tons and tons of records or tons of anything is weird. But I realise now, Steve, that, and it's a horrible thing, and I hate to admit this because I feel really embarrassed and really ashamed, because I was speaking to lots of people in the Facebook record group, and actually, if you're watching this, Stephen, I'm not a member of any of those groups anymore. If you come across anyone in those groups who say, oh, I wonder where Mark Gardner went, if you could just explain a little to them, I'd be very grateful that it was all, that I'm not a member because it was my record buying was a compulsive problem. That would be wonderful. If you don't, you don't. That's fine. That's cool. But some people have messaged me saying, hey, where did you go from the record groups? So yeah, my record buying was just compulsive. And I've sold all my records. I got a very good price. I was shocked at how I had a guy come over, he was in the local paper, and he offered me an amount of money for my entire collection that was really shocking. So I sold all my records. I've kept some of my favourites, like the Goat albums and some of the rarities and the first presses I've got, because I didn't want to sell them as part of a collection. I think I might sell them in the future for a little bit of cash if I ever get strapped for money, so they're kind of a bit of a security blanket. So to answer your question, Stephen, I'm really sorry, mate, but it turns out that all the activity with my records was all a compulsive part of my dissociative disorder. So they're all gone. I've still got my record player because I can't sell it, funnily enough. I've been advertising it forever and nobody wants it. So anyway, that's what happened. So let's move on to the next question. This is a question from Mao Modern, not really 100%, so I apologise. Hi Mark, hope you're doing well. What was the worst day of your life that you will never forget, and also the best day of your life? The worst day of my life was when my grandfather passed away. My grandfather was a really great man. He fought in the Second World War against the Japanese in the Pacific. Lovely man. He dealt in stocks and shares, and he was, he didn't have much money, but he would buy and sell shares, and so he could buy a new car and have little treats. Unfortunately, he developed cancer, and unfortunately, he kept it to himself, and he didn't even go to the doctors. He knew he had something very wrong with him, because he was very ill, but he didn't go to the doctors. I think he was, I don't know, I never got the opportunity to speak to him, but I think he was just scared. And unfortunately one night we got a phone call to say that he'd been rushed into the hospital in Somerset, and that he had to have an emergency operation to remove cancer from his body. Myself and my family jumped in the car and rushed down to Somerset. Unfortunately, by the time we got there, we were told that during the operation, because of his sort of weakened health and his heart and his body couldn't withstand the anaesthetic and the stress of the operation, and he had a massive heart attack whilst being operated on. And he was on life, when we arrived, he was on life support, and the doctor said unfortunately he's never going to wake up. There's nothing that we can do. The stress of the operation, the cancer, and the massive heart attack has just left him, his body and his brain is not working. The only reason he is technically alive is because the machine is putting air into his lungs, So unfortunately they had to switch off the machine, and he passed away, and that was the worst day of my life. The thing that we used to write letters to each other. I love writing and reading letters. I'd actually really, really love people to write letters to me so I could reply. I'd love to find pen pals, but that's not what I'm talking about. My granddad and I used to write letters to each other, and it was one of the great... If you watch my videos, the biggest pleasure of my life is sitting at my writing desk with some paper in front of me and my fountain pen writing. I used to get incredibly excited when his letter would drop through the letterbox, and I'd read it and write back straight away, you know. But we never got to speak, and my biggest regret is that I didn't spend more time with him, because he lived in Somerset and I lived in Reading, which isn't an excuse because Somerset's not that far. Yeah, so that was the worst day of my life, my grandfather passing away. That was really hard, and it was really hard because I regret not seeing him and speaking to him. The best day of my life, goodness me, I'm not really sure that I can pinpoint one specific day, but the best days of my life, the things that I could do with my day that would make it the best days, are when I can just go out and walk along the canal path or river path or walk in the woods and just be out in the fresh air and see nature and flowers and trees and plants and animals. I went on a canal walk a few weeks ago, and that was fantastic. I had a bit of a weird incident. I became quite down, but it was a great day. So the best day of my life, I can't really name one specific day, so I apologise, but the best days are when I can just go out and just be in the fresh air and walk or cycle, just so that my body is moving, and just be out in the fresh air and be with nature. So yeah, I'm sorry, that second part's not really much of an answer. You asked me for the best day. I can't really answer that. I can't really genuinely think of one day that stands out. I have another question from Newly Awakened. What did you ever name the toad in your allotment? Unfortunately, I didn't name him anything because I went back the next day and he'd gone. He left me for another allotment, left me for another toad. I hope wherever he is now he's very happy. And I'm going to answer this question, and unfortunately this is going to be the last question that I'm going to answer at the moment because this video is getting very long and it will take me forever to upload because my internet speed's really crap at the moment. So what I'll do is, this will be part 1 of my Q&A video, and I will shoot part 2 immediately after this and then upload it the next day. So part 2 will be tomorrow. If you're watching, you know what I mean. Part 2 will come the next day after this part. So the last question for this part of the question and answer is from Claire Graves. What got you interested in minimalism, and do you find it difficult to be a minimalist in such a consumer-focused society? I'm not sure that anything in particular got me interested in minimalism. I think I just always have been a minimalist before I actually was, if that makes sense. What I mean is, I have a minimalist brain and personality. Ever since I was a small child, I've not had stuff. I've never wanted stuff. I remember at primary school, you know that moment in school when you return from your summer holidays and everyone's got a new school bag and new trainers and new shoes and a new pencil case. Everyone's been to WH Smith's in the summer and bought new erasers and pencils and a furry pencil case. I remember not wanting any of that. I just remember looking at all the kids with all their new shiny stuff and just thinking, nah, it doesn't bother me, don't want it. So I think even as a young child I was a minimalist. I didn't realise at the time what minimalism was. I didn't realise that until my sort of early teens, and then I began to really sort of focus on it. So I don't think anything in particular made me interested in minimalism. I just always have been a minimalist without knowing it. And as I've got older, it's developed, and obviously I can now practice minimalism much more. Obviously, watching lots of YouTube videos makes you much more of a minimalist, because you see the way other people live and you get ideas, and it infuses you with a passion for not having stuff. I don't want stuff. You watch television and you see, or you hear You know, the new iPad was released tomorrow and there are already people queuing up outside the shops. You know, people are queuing up outside shops to buy the new iPad or the new iPhone or the new games console, and they queue up for 24 hours before the shop opens. And I just think these people are lunatics. You know, I don't want all that stuff. I've got most of the stuff that I own is not up to the date high-tech stuff. I mean, my mobile phone, my sister upgraded and she gave me her old phone, which is an old Samsung. It's the first smartphone I've ever had. Before that I couldn't go on Instagram and do all that stuff. I had a phone that basically, up until 3 months ago, I had a phone that sent texts and made phone calls. That's all it did. I don't want all that stuff. It doesn't bother me. Having said that, now that I'm working more and more online and my money, my income depends on online, I am putting money aside to upgrade. I need a better laptop because this one's slow. I need a better camera because this flip camera's not great. So yeah, I've always been a minimalist. I just didn't know it until I was a teenager, and then suddenly I heard the term minimalism and it's like, oh, that's me, I'm a minimalist. Second part of your question, Claire, do you find it difficult to be a minimalist in such a consumer-focused society? No, I don't. A lot of minimalists will say, yeah, it is difficult, but I don't find it difficult because I've never been a consumer. I've always rejected consumerism. As I said in a previous video, you can do things to reject consumerism. Don't watch the news, because that's mass consumerism. People forcing ideas of the world into you is a form of consumerism. I don't watch much television, and the TV that I do watch tends to be not on commercial TV stations, so I haven't got adverts. I don't listen to commercial radio. I don't buy magazines. I don't buy like men's magazines like GQ. The only point of a men's magazine or a woman's magazine is to tell you you're not good enough, you don't look good enough, your body's not good enough, your brain isn't good enough, so that you then go and buy all the stuff that those magazines are advertising. So no, I don't find it difficult to be a minimalist in a consumer society. I realise that for a lot of people, separating themselves from consumerism is hard. It's never been difficult for me, because I've always been a consumer. No, I've always been a minimalist, sorry. Yikes. Ever since I was a kid. So, okay, I'm going to end this video here. This is part 1. I'm then going to film part 2, and that will be uploaded next. So if you're watching this and you were hoping for your question to be answered, if I haven't answered your question, I apologise, but I will be answering your questions immediately after this video, and that will be in part 2, so you might have to wait an extra for 24 hours, so 24 hours is not too long to wait for you, I hope. I've got some really great questions coming up, so I hope, you know, those of you who have had your questions answered, I hope you watch part 2. So yeah, anyway, thank you for joining me for part 1. Part 2 will be uploaded 24 hours after this, so I hope you enjoy it. I hope this isn't too long for you to watch. Hope you're having a wonderful time, and I'll see you all again very, very shortly. Thank you. Goodbye.